Hello. So, just a little different video. It's just a little different from what I'm doing, but yeah. But recently, as I'm wearing this jacket, it's a Halloween Horror Nights jacket, which I did show off in that video where I was showing off all the Halloween Horror Nights stuff, and I decided that seeing that people have already started to like HHN speculation has already begun to honor that season. I just wanted to go back to my very first year of HHN, which was last year, and back in October of 2023. Like, I don't necessarily want it to be a normal review of the event, but I just want to do a whole retrospective of the whole thing. But I will have somewhat of a review / ranking towards the end. But first, I just want to my retrospective of the event before going down to HHN. So first thing is actually starting in October of 2022, right when on Halloween, right when the 2022 event was getting ready to end. They announced their first house, the Chucky, being the Chucky, which would later be renamed Chucky Ultimate Kill Count, which was a cool announcement. But then again, okay, this might be kind of controversial, but Chucky's probably my least favorite out of the big name horror icons, like your Freddy, your Jason, your Michael Myers, all those. But then we fast forward to May of either April or May or even June of oh yeah, it's definitely May or June of 2023. My dad asked me, seeing that I was getting ready to graduate high school at the time, he asked me, what do you want to do for your graduation? Do you want to go to Universal during the summer or the fall? And I'm like, there is something I would definitely like to see in the fall at Universal. And so yeah, that kind of became my graduation present. It's kind of late. It was kind of late, but definitely worth it. So now now come the day I graduated high school, I was actually given a surprise. They had got me a shirt that said, "See you in the fog." If you've been to HHN, you'll know that, or watched any HHN content creators on YouTube. They always say "See you in the fog" towards the end of their videos, which is really cool HHN thing, and they always have a bunch of fog in the streets of Universal whenever it's Halloween Horror Nights season. But anyway, that was I got that shirt as well as the news that we would be going to Halloween Horror Nights in October. Fast forward to June, I think, and that was when they announced The Last of Us. And I thought it was a really cool announcement, and Joel and Ellie was there. Well, not in the announcement trailer, but actually Joel was in the or if you watch the little trailer for when they announced The Last of Us, you can see that there was a girl playing the game The Last of Us, which The Last of Us, just a little side note, but The Last of Us being at HHN is actually kind of cool for another thing, for two reasons. One, it did celebrate other than being probably one of the biggest properties they had down there, aside from another one, which we will get to eventually. One, it was celebrating its 10th anniversary, and two, they had actually recently released the HBO series starring Pedro Pascal and Bella Ramsey. Then we go down to July, I think, and they announce Stranger Things, and I remember that day Okay, so my mom had, so I had woken up very late into the day, like 12 or something. Yeah, I know. Please don't at me in the comments. But anyway, they had announced Stranger Things, and my mom, and whenever I woke up, my mom started calling me on the phone, she was like, you need to check your HHN news. And then I was struggling to find it, but then she shared it to me. Then that's when I found out that Stranger Things, like Stranger Things season 4, which happened to be my favorite house that year, it skyrocketed my expectations and made me even more excited for HHN. Now we fast forward to August when they announced pretty much everything else, but they also they had the Exorcist Believer, which is based off that new Blumhouse Exorcist sequel / reboot of the original Exorcist, whatever you want to call it, which I thought it was kind of weird at the time because the movie was coming out on October 6th, and HHN started in like late September. So yeah, I thought to myself, wouldn't it be kind of spoilery or spoilerish? I don't know. Anyway, then that same day, it was announced pretty much everything else that was going to be there. Like, we found out that Chucky was going to be called Chucky Ultimate Kill Count. There was the Universal Monsters Unmasked, which focused on the Phantom of the Opera, Invisible Man, the Hunchback of Notre Dame, and Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Then, as well as some of the original houses down there, that like Blood Moon Dark Offerings, The Darkest Deal, Dueling Dragons, Dr. Oddfellow's Twisted Origins, as well as Yeti Campground Kills, and as well as some of the scare zones that was down there, like Shipyard 32, there was Expedition Jungle of Doom, there was Vamp 69, there was a Dr. Oddfellow scare zone, which all of these scare zones were tied in some way with Dr. Oddfellow. Thought I might point that out. And there was also the little Zodiac Dimension zone. I forgot what the name of it was. As well as announcing the show Halloween Nightmare Fuel, or Nightmare Fuel Revenge Dream, whatever it was called. Anyway, the show that used to be where Fear Factory is, if you've ever been to Universal Studios or Universal Orlando. Oh yeah, this was mainly for Orlando, by the way. And now we fast forward all the way to October when we were down there. It kind of started off kind of slow. Visited some family down there. Went to SeaWorld for a day. Was first time actually being at SeaWorld, but didn't necessarily catch my interest. But I did have fun though. Then the next day, got to go to Universal by myself and bought most of my HHN merch. Then went to, I think I might have went to Universal for another day. It was either that or I went to, but I did go to Disney for Mickey's Not So Scary for a day, which I like the whole Nightmare Before Christmas stuff, but it just didn't. But Mickey's Not So Scary just doesn't have that same level of appeal for me as Halloween Horror Nights. But then we fast forward to Thursday of that weekend, October 26th, I think it was. We get down there. It was for HHN. We did a couple of rides. I bought the Chucky popcorn bucket, which I don't have it on me because it was packed up and took me down to Florida. If you've ever watched my life update video. But anyway, now we fast forward to probably my favorite part of what I'm going to get to tell you, the haunted houses. So So first haunted house me and my dad ever did was Stranger Things. It was based on season 4. We were going through the house and my and like if you have ever been to Halloween Horror Nights back in 2023 in either Orlando or Hollywood and went through the Stranger Things house, you'll know that you enter in the trailer where Eddie and Chrissy were having their moment before Chrissy gets killed. But yeah, whenever I first saw that trailer, and then they had like the Stranger Things theme playing, and also had audio of Dustin explaining what the Upside Down is to Eddie, my mind was just blown away, and I kind of let the little fanboy in me out. But yeah, the scares were excellent. The Vecna costumes were cool. I like how they even incorporated the soundtrack of this 4th season, Stranger Things, into the house. Like they had a scene where you're in Vecna's mind layer, and they, where the dead bodies of Chrissy and Fred are, where Max is trying to get out, and they had like Running Up That Hill playing. Like I was like, oh my goodness, this was cool. But then they also have probably my favorite scene out of that whole maze. And the best thing is where they actually recreate the scene where Eddie and Dustin are in the Upside Down, and they play Master of Puppets by Metallica. That I was like, woo! With the little rock cymbals. Next house we did was Dueling Dragons, Choose Thy Fate, which, oh yeah, I did say that, didn't I? Oh wait, no, I didn't say Dueling Dragons when I was listing off all the houses that it was. Now this one was actually kind of interesting, but now it was visually the most stunning house down there that wasn't IP based, which stands for intellectual property, in case you didn't know. Now, a little background is that this is actually based on an old ride that used to be at not Halloween Horror Nights, Islands of Adventure back when the park first opened. But now that roller coaster is gone, and used to be where Hagrid's used to now resides. Anyway, so you're basically going through and where there's like these ice warlock and fire warlock and all these demons that are fire and ice themed. They were really cool, and where the plot is where they're trying to get their hands on Merlin's spell book, and Merlin's trying to prevent that from happening, basically. And there was even this scene where on one side there was like the fire dragon, the ice dragon. And another interesting thing is that this is a dual path house, which means where you can choose different ways, and they'll have like different endings. Like there was like 4 different endings from what I've seen online. And me and my dad went through the fire ending, and we actually won where if you end up winning, depending on which side you go through, you'll see Merlin congratulate you and say that you have chosen wisely. But then every now and then you'll see that either the fire, depending on which side you chose, the fire warlock or the ice warlock holding the head of Merlin, which we ended up getting the ending where Merlin won on the fire side. And yeah, it did differ. Even though we only went through the houses once, I did find out about that through the internet. And one last side note: does anybody else think that the little ice demons in those in the Dueling Dragons house look like the looked like either the White Walker or the Night King from Game of Thrones. I just thought I might point that out. Anyway, the next house we did was The Exorcist Believer, which I actually had a lot of fun going through, despite me earlier saying that it was kind of spoilerish because at the time it wasn't released yet. Well, by the time we were going, it was in theaters, but I hadn't seen it yet. But from what I've seen, the reviews aren't so great for it. But anyway, we went through that one. It was pretty much a lot of the scenes from that movie with the two girls being possessed. You're basically like going through the woods where they go missing, and there's like these police officers or people searching for the two girls, and they're like Angela, Catherine, which are the names of the two girls in that new Exorcist movie, by the way. And then there's like these demons coming out at you and stuff. Which, it was a fun house, don't get me wrong, but I still think it was kind of weird that they make a haunted house of a movie that hadn't even released into theaters yet, or was still in theaters. But anyway, next house we experienced was actually something my dad was actually kind of excited for. Yeti Campground Kills. He and my mom both, well, my mom didn't go, but he and my mom both liked the idea of it, mainly because it involves Yetis and camping. Even though the Yetis in that house kind of looked more like a Sasquatch to me. I don't necessarily know why, but I mean, it was a pretty fun house, don't get me wrong. And also, true story, there was actually when me and my dad both were walking through that house, we were there was one time when a Yeti scares me. He starts laughing at me. Then the next thing you know, there's a scare actor, I think it was of the Yeti too, but then he scares him too, and I'm like, that's payback for you, man. Anyway, but yeah, the Yeti house was very fun. The next house we did was what was it? Oh yeah, the Chucky Ultimate Kill Count. Now, I don't think it's really all that controversial to say that this ended up being my least favorite house of going to HHN. Now, don't get me wrong, the Chucky puppets look really cool, but I don't necessarily know why, if it's just because that Chucky's my least favorite of the horror icons as established earlier, or if it was just too goofy for me. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't want to disrespect any of the scare actors that were in that house, and I like the Chucky puppets too, as I said earlier, but it just didn't necessarily catch that appeal. And also the little like if you know, it takes place in the Fast and Furious queue, and there's like this little outdoor area. It just kind of killed the vibe for me whenever they had that outdoor area. But from my understanding, last year it made more sense because last year's HHN event, they had the Horrors of Blumhouse, which focuses on two movies, Freaky and the Black Phone. Now, it makes sense to have that little outdoor area for that house because it was like a little intermission switching from movie to movie. But for Chucky, it just kind of killed the vibe, man. Does anybody else agree? I mean, I haven't been in the HHN Horrors of Blumhouse, but you pretty much get the picture. The next house we ended up doing was Dr. Oddfellow's Twisted Origin. Now, before I went to HHN, while I didn't watch any of this year's house videos, I did get caught up on the lore of like Dr. Oddfellow, and as well as the other HHN icons like Jack the Clown, and Chance, the caretaker, the director, the storyteller, Lady Luck, the Usher, as well as Fear. Oh yeah, Eddie and Cindy too, and the Pumpkin Lord. Now, Now, as much as I like the lore of Halloween Horror Nights and Dr. Oddfellow's backstory and all the set design too, like, this is probably my second least favorite of the HHN houses this year. Like, it's nothing against the scare actors or the set design, but it's just got the least amount of scares out of me. Now, pretty much the set pieces and the scare actors and the lore is pretty much the only reason why I'd top it over Chucky. But I'm just gonna put Dr. Oddfellow's Twisted Origins over Chucky mainly because of those reasons. And there was only two scares that really got me. Like, there was this one scene where this guy gets his head chopped off, and then his body jumps out at you. And then there's probably the cheapest scare tactic ever, being air hoses. That's right. One of two scares that got me at Halloween Horror Nights was air hoses. But anyway, before I have a meltdown over air hoses, next house we did was The Darkest Deal. Now, this is actually a really cool one, where it basically follows this blues musician named Pine Straw Spruce who makes a deal with the collector, even though it's basically the devil. It kind of gave off it basically went through a 1950s a lounge or club, and this blues musician made a deal with the devil to become a better blues musician, and this is actually somewhat based on a real claim that a real blues musician actually said, where apparently he sold his soul to the devil to become a better blues musician. There's a whole rabbit hole on that, but anyway, I thought it kind of had a cool concept beside it. Kind of gave Devil Went Down to Georgia vibes, and you basically end up in hell towards the end. I mean, that's not really cool, but okay. So that basically indicates that we didn't survive towards the end. Oh well. The next house we ended up doing was before we ended up taking a break from the other houses, was The Last of Us. Of course, being based on the video game by Naughty Dog, and you even see Joel and Ellie in there. It was basically based around around when Joel and Ellie are trying to get out of Pittsburgh, which is basically 4 hours into the game. It's actually a really cool house. The main scare that got me the most was the bloater, where you had the big guy, the big bloater come up close to you and he starts charging at you. Yeah, that's pretty crazy. Oh well. And also they didn't really have much scare actors of Joel and Ellie interact with each other. There's the one scare actor of Joel towards the end, where if you played The Last of Us, and they have and specifically the Pittsburgh level of the game where they're crashed and Joel is demanding Ellie to stay down. And then there's another one where Ellie is behind a thing, like one of those dry rack things or whatever it's called, whenever you hang your clothes out to dry outside, and she starts firing at either a hunter or a clicker. But the most times we ever get to really see Joel and Ellie together in the house was because there was a brief moment where they had projections of Joel and Ellie's silhouettes walking, and then they have a mannequin of Joel and Ellie with their backs toward us. And the clicker costumes are really cool, by the way. I also want to talk a little bit about the scare zones. like the first scare zone I think we ever walked through was Vamp 69, which while my favorite scare zone was also kind of funny too, because so basically you have like of course it's tied into Dr. Odd. All the scare zones are tied into Dr. Oddfellow's haunted house, and where Oddfellow actually disguised himself as a vampire, and he was basically leading a vampire attack at a music festival called Music Fest, and it takes place in 1969, which takes place in between both previous scare zones, Vamp 55 and Vamp 85, but this time it's called Vamp 69, taking place in the late 60s, but the main thing that really stuck out to me is that you basically get to watch these vampires feasting on people while 60s songs play, like there was like the Beatles Come Together, or Creedence Clearwater Revivals, Up and Around the Bend, or Down in the Corner, and as well as Sweet Caroline. I thought the scare zone was pretty funny. The next house I think we did was the Dark Zodiac, which there was even a scare actor to get me really good. I can't remember which one it was. And probably the only one that had a chainsaw wielding maniac in that scare zone. Which if you ever been to Halloween Horror Nights, you'll know that there's usually like a bunch of maniacs with chainsaws trying to chase after you. And the next house we did was Shipyard 32, where there was like a bunch of creatures roaming around the place. There was even this one particular scare actor, which I scared or the scare zone that people there's no official name for this character, but the fans have been and I thought that was actually kind of cool. Anyway, the next scare zone would have to be Jungle of Doom, which is actually before I get to Jungle of Doom, how the Dark Zodiac and what's his name? Dark Zodiac and Shipyard 32, how they tie into Dr. Oddfellow's story is that after Jack the Clown killed Dr. Oddfellow during the 2007 event, he didn't actually kill Dr. Oddfellow, but he got sent to the Zodiac dimension. And as for Shipyard 32, in the San Francisco area, Dr. Oddfellow had shipped many monsters from his journeys into San Francisco, and they broke havoc. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Now back to Jungle of Doom. How this ties into Dr. Oddfellow is that Oddfellow goes roaming around the forest looking for this little thing that grants him more immortality, which is basically like a little stone, which is on his cane, by the way, if you've ever seen Dr. Oddfellow or just know about him. And that's where all of these jungle monsters. Now, my mom, as I said earlier, my mom didn't go to Halloween Horror Nights, but whenever she'd walk through the scare zone in the day with no scare actors, she thought it was really cool. And now, of course, there was also Dr. Oddfellow's Traveling Circus, or whatever it was called, that was actually more involved with Dr. Oddfellow, which had all of these oddities. I can't even talk. Now that we discussed the scare zones, now me and my dad did take a break from houses, and we ended up getting the pizza fries, which are really good, by the way. A big chef's kiss. Anyway, now with that out of the way, we finish up the houses with the Universal Monsters Unmasked, which there's a little story behind it where the Invisible Man is on the run from the police, and he ends up in Paris, where where Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde are in Paris right now conducting experiments, and also the Phantom of the Opera and the Hunchback of Notre Dame are residing in Paris too, and it's just a big old monster mash, if you will. And and they had a lot of really cool scares. Like whenever the Phantom of the Opera would scare you, they would play like the little like organ music and just get the knife out. And also there was this one room where it's basically full of invisible men, and it's basically like a kind of a blacklight effect, and like these scare actors are wearing like these black suits with Invisible Man costumes on, and you're trying to play a game of which one's real or fake, or which one's real and which one's a scare actor and which one's just a mannequin, and they just jump out at you and stuff. And at first I was confused on where Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde were, but then I realized that it was kind of this weird monster-looking thing that was Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Like, I could even barely tell it was Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Like, if they went more for the Two-Face approach, like Batman or something, which is probably where they got the inspiration for Two-Face from Batman. Like, if they went for more of that look, I would probably tell if that was Dr. Jekyll or Mr. Hyde. And also there was the Hunchback of Notre Dame, where he's like over, like hanging over, yeah. And then towards the end, all four of them scare you. And then the next house we went through, which was the last one, by the way, Blood Moon, Dark Offerings, which was basically a house about this town with basically a cult that worships the blood moon, like a real sacrificing the victims cult. And they even have this one scene where you're basically walking through a church, and they have like these scare actors, either scare actors or mannequins sitting in the pews, and they would jump out at you, and okay, funny story is that my dad actually went with me for Halloween Horror Nights, as I've already established, and in this same exact house, he did not like the fact that there was like this cult sitting in the pews, and they're just scaring you. Well, now with the houses and scare zones out of the way, we also went and watched the Halloween Nightmare Fuel, which was where Fear Factor is, and where they basically do like a lot of dancing, set a lot of music, which a lot of the music they play is for that show was really good. Like before the show even started, like they had this remixed version of Welcome to the Black Parade by My Chemical Romance. And you bet my little emo heart was singing to it. And yeah, and they also played Bodies by Johnny Pool, which whenever they start playing that song, my dad just looked back at me with the death stare. But now with that out of the way, also what's really cool is that they, that for Halloween Horror Nights in Diagon Alley, the Harry Potter section, they actually had the Death Eaters out, which was actually a first for Diagon Alley. And we didn't really get to see them much because we had to go back to the room because my dad's feet were killing him. But it was cool for what it is. And now another part I've been waiting for, the house ranking. So number 10, we'll have to go to the Chucky Ultimate Kill Count. Of course, I like the puppets, and the scare actors were in their A game as always. But it was just kind of too goofy for me. Number 9 would have to go to Dr. Oddfellow's Twisted Origins. I like a lot of this set pieces and the lore behind Dr. Oddfellow, as well as the scare actors too. But there was only like 2 scares that really got me, but I will definitely place it for lore reasons over Chucky. The next house would have, number 8 would have to be The Exorcist Believer. Now, mainly due to the fact that it was kind of spoiler territory whenever they did the house before right after HHN even. Like, the movie didn't even come out yet, and HHN started before the house, before the movie even came out. Next house, this might be a tad bit controversial, but I'm gonna have to go with Yeti Campground Kills. Not that it's a bad house or anything, but it was interesting. That's all I'll say, I guess. Next house is going to be Dueling Dragons, which, as much as I thought it was visually stunning, I did think that there was some better houses than that one. And thought the Dual Path house was very interesting. The next house on the list, now this was a tough one. Number 5 is The Darkest Deal. Now number 4 is Blood Moon. Now I get to the top 3. Now this one might be this might be controversial, but I was kind of, I didn't know what I wanted to put at number 3, but because both these 2 houses were kind of at a tie, but I decided that number 3 is going to be The Last of Us. Now, I loved all the set pieces. The clicker costumes looked cool. Bloater, Joel, Ellie, all of them. And now number 2 is the not Phantom of the Opera, but Universal Monsters Unmasked. I love the Paris setting, the costumes for Phantom, Invisible Man, Hunchback. Even if it confused me, even Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde had the cool one too. But now number 1, of course, is going to be controversial too. Is number 1? I'm going to have to give it to Stranger Things. And loved all the set pieces. It gave me the most fanboy reaction, and loved how they added the Master of Puppets and running up that hill to the house too. Which also towards the beginning of November, I also looked up any differences between the Hollywood and Orlando versions. Turns out they actually didn't use any of the soundtrack for Hollywood, but they did Orlando, which was kind of weird. But anyway, we're only talking about Orlando for this, for the most part. But anyway, that has been all for today. I hope you enjoyed this one, and I can't wait to go to HHN in October, maybe. But anyway, see ya. Goodbye. Hope you subscribe, like, comment, all that cool stuff. See ya.